Hey, well, good morning and welcome to another daily devotional. We have been going through the book of Job, and today we are now in Job chapter 36. We are now kind of coming to the climax of the end of all of Job's friends' kind of discussions and their arguments against Job. And up to this point, we have briefly been studying a friend named Elihu, who came into be into the conversation in Job 32. And as we've been reading, it's Elihu's kind of arguments have been kind of interesting from the perspective of many times he would say things that it was like, wow, this seems really true. Then there was other things he would say that, depending on how we took them, we could say, is what he's saying right or not? I really don't know. And there's times in the scripture and Bible where it's hard to tell, where we say, man, I don't know if this is this right? Is it not? And we can sometimes quickly say it is right, or we can quickly say it is wrong. And we can do that, but we have to say, okay, God, is this what you're saying? Is this what you're not saying? I don't know how to take what Elihu is saying. And for me, this becomes even more amplified in chapter 36. Elihu begins to say some things that are just blatantly right, that are just really good. And like he says things like this. He says like God does not take his eyes off of the righteous. He enthrones them with kings and exalts them forever. He begins to tell Job, hey, I understand you're going through some stuff and God's eyes are on you through this. He begins to encourage Job. He says this, those who suffer, he delivers in their suffering. He speaks to them in their affliction. He said that in verse 15. It's saying, wait a second, maybe Elihu is turning out not to be a bad guy. Maybe he's turning out to have some truth. And then he begins in verse 27, and you have to really read from now till the end of the book, all as one big passage to really get a mental picture as to what's happening here. And in verse 27, he begins to describe a storm. And so if you really picture Elihu speaking, he's been giving this big speech for these last few chapters. Elihu has one of the largest sections out of the entire book of Job, okay, which he goes on. And then now in verse 27, a huge storm begins to come. The sky is filling up with clouds and rain and lightning. You're beginning to hear thunder that's happening. And he begins to do this discourse of his theology, his view of who God is. The word theo means God, ology, the study of, or the view of God. And he begins to just have this absolutely amazing discourse as to who God is. He says this, he draws up the drops of the water, which distill as rain to the streams. The clouds pour down their moisture, and abundant showers fall on all mankind. Who can understand how he spreads out the clouds, how he thunders from his pavilion? See how he scatters his lightning about him, bathing the depths of the sea. This is the way he governs the nations and provides food in abundance. He fills his hands with lightning and commands it to strike its mark. His thunder announces the coming storm. Even the cattle make known its approach. And he goes on and on and on. And really, it begins to climax into chapter 37, which we're going to talk about a little bit tomorrow. But we begin to get this insight of maybe Elihu has had some truth as to what he was saying. So many times we can so quickly be offended or off-put by some things that someone is saying that we may say, well, this can't be God because of how offensive what he is saying is. And we've been talking about from the perspective these last few days of, well, clearly Elihu was wrong, but maybe now we're beginning to realize maybe there was some truth in all of the other things that he was saying. Maybe some things he said were off basis, but maybe some of what he was actually saying was right. And you may say, well, Pastor William, you're way off basis. How could anything Elihu have said been right? Job was blameless. Well, Job was blameless at the beginning of Job. Okay, God said at the beginning of Job that he was blameless. God hasn't spoken about Job since the beginning of the book, and a whole lot has happened since then. So maybe, just maybe, some of the things Job said were a little off basis, and Elihu now had some truth to what he was saying. And now this kind of becomes the chapter where it opens up our eyes to say, wow, we really need to view this whole thing as what is happening. And if you really want to wonder, is Elihu right or not, look at the last chapter of Job. I know I'm jumping way ahead, but not a spoiler alert, but at the end of the book of Job, God begins to rebuke the friends, and he has the whole list of friends that were wrong, and God begins to say, you were wrong, you were wrong, you were wrong, you were wrong, but the name Elihu is not on that list. Elihu is the one person in this entire book that is not rebuked. Job gets rebuked. Everyone gets rebuked other than Elihu. Spoiler alert. So we begin to say, maybe this person that was so off-putting at first might actually have some good theology. And in our lives, when people begin to correct us and begin to say stuff, we can be so off-put by what they're saying because it may come across as harsh, it may come across as ignorant, it may come across as all these different things. But we have to say, is the person's theology right that is giving this to us? Maybe, just maybe, there is some truth to what they are saying, and maybe actually what they are saying is for our good. Because Elihu now begins to say, no, Job, God is with you. God is going to sustain you. Look at what he says. But those who suffer, he delivers in their suffering. He speaks to them in their affliction. At the beginning, we had pushed Elihu so far away because he had been correcting. But now we need to begin to say, wait a second. Maybe Elihu is actually a bearer of good news. And in your life, there may be of people you've pushed away that now you may realize, wow, maybe the things they were saying I should have been listening to. So I encourage you, study Elihu. Go back now. Read these passages of Elihu. I had to go back. After studying this chapter, I had to say, wow, this is a completely different perspective. Let me go back and restudy those other chapters now from a different perspective to see everything that has been happening. And so I encourage you, if someone has been off-putting to you, begin to ask God, hey God, is there even a grain of truth in what this person has been teaching me? So I really encourage you, these next few chapters are going to be absolutely life-changing. You want to be a part. We're finishing up the book. It's all coming to the culmination. You cannot miss the next 6 days or so. So we want to see you tomorrow for tomorrow's daily devotional.